Well, since this game jam brought a lot of like developers together, I figured I'd check out some of their stuff. And granted, a lot of their stuff I can't show on stream. Uh, let's see. So, like, shout out to Strange Flesh developer Max. I have a review up that I did many years ago that you could always check out, but I definitely recommend checking out that game out. Devil's Gambit. uh, Actually, I could. The latest build I could technically play on stream, but considering that isn't quite out yet as a public build, I'm not going to play that now. A pretty good bear. Only a couple dozen people have been banned from the video platforms for playing safe. Only a couple people? I'm surprised. Also, I take it you're Great Bear Studios or Max. I'm actually I don't even think I've ever had a yes, hi. Nice to meet you. I don't think I've ever had an issue with my video up there, but I've noticed it as a content like as a content creator, I seem to be in the minority that actually follows YouTube's at least as far as I notice. I actually don't quite pay attention to when I click to videos if I get like an age gate prompt, but I seem to be like one of the few like content creators that actually follows YouTube's like guidelines and actually marks all my adult content as like adult content and age gates them preemptively. And that seems to be like, I'm pretty sure that's the thing that makes sure that I don't get in trouble for the videos that I make. Because everyone's always like, oh yeah, we get like struck and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't, because I actually age gate my videos. Yeah, it hurts you in the algorithm. That sucks, but I mean, it's their house, so I kind of have to play by their rules. So it is what it is. Like, I think the only like a video that I've ever had an issue with was is the second Mutant Alley game that I reviewed, Dino Hazard, which isn't subtitled like that anymore for legal reasons. But like, even then, that video has like, there was a span of a couple of months that video got like struck repeatedly, and every time I appealed, I won those appeals. So I don't understand why, but yeah, it's still up. I don't have any strikes on my channel. And actually for the for the longest time, I think Strange Flesh video was like either like my second most viewed video on my channel, or at the very least it was like the most viewed like video from my like adult video game reviews on my like playlist. So let's see, Devil's Gambit. I mean, definitely can't play Pasty Grace's Haunted Brothel on Twitch. I've heard it's very good. Mac Drago doesn't have any like content that I could stream. Actually, I don't know if he's got like an actual like game for me to like check out. So that leaves Douglas Kim's We've Got Another Year, which I think its version 1.0 came out like a year or two ago. Let me double check. This version was released. Oh, actually, no, it was a lot longer than that. 2001. Or 2021. I don't think I've ever heard of this visual novel, but I figured I can check it out for a little bit and see. Might as well, seeing as they participated in this jam. So we got another year. The first episode of my visual novel project is ready. Follow Roberto as he starts his second semester of law school, having to navigate friendships, work, college, and a brand new problem that showed up in his life all of a sudden. Is just the little synopsis that we got on the page, so let's take a look. Oh, this is a work in progress. Actually, I'm going to change this to... update my stream menu, or my stream title. Alright, many visual assets and features may be missing. Grammar mistakes might be present too. During the game, or during play, you will come across choices that affect the story. Some of these choices focus on intuitive responses and rational responses, or neutral responses. Would you like to see the marker indicating for each choice? Sure. You can change whether or not to show the markers at any time in the preferences menu, which can be accessed with the right mouse button. So I like it when the game at least sort of indicates like what kind of response it is. Mostly because like sometimes when you don't have that, you see a response and the text just offers nothing. Well, it would seem like, oh, hey, I'm going to respond in this way. And then, like, you either think, like, a response might be sincere, but then it comes off as, like, snarky. The game presents it as snarky instead, which is weird. So you kind of have, like, no context for tone in terms of, like, just based on the text a lot of the time. So I like indicators like that. Episode 1, Lonely. Sit back and enjoy. I have no idea how long this is going to be. Ah, thank you. It's very nice of you to say so. A game by Douglas Kim. Now, as far as for how we've met, it's quite interesting. It was all the way back in 2015 in college. A friend introduced us. Then we met and things... Well, let's grab another drink. It's a lengthy story, but well worth it. Your themes by Midnight Animals and Pepper Coyote. Actually, I know of Pepper Coyote. If I remember, they wrote the the Wolfcock song, or the Horsecock song, and voice talent. Ooh, wait, is there voice acting in this? Uranus, ToS, Metaphor, Screen Yin, or Space Yin, Drath, Darenth, Brian Harth, Michelle Santos, and Douglas Kim. Do forgive me if I get some details wrong. I'm quite beyond tipsy now, and honestly, it's been so long. Well, I guess we'll see what year this takes place. Some very memorable things happen, but others I try not to recall them that often. We've got another year. I was living in a dormitory and studying at the new Yankan Estate University. It was the beginning of our third semester. Boring, I know, but that's when it began. Classroom 304. In the library building. Huh. Who knew the library building had classrooms too? I've walked this campus up and down the whole year, and I'm still finding hidden nooks and crannies. This place is like an English muffin of learning. Did you guys know that there were classrooms in the library building? Ah, okay, so the sound effects are kind of like Banjo-Kazooie, raw, ooh. But less Banjo-Kazooie in terms of ba ba ba. Actually, I want to turn those up. Maybe turn the music down a little. I could hear those better. And maybe turn my mic a little down. There. Oh, actually, I just realized this is the wrong audio channel for this. Ooh, poor character. Alright, poor character, you're gonna get this voice.
Yeah, there's about 20 of them. Why?
Cause I didn't know. It's sort of surprising. Immediately three characters. Really? Haven't you been to the library building before? Do you not study or whatever? No, never had to.
What about the study groups? You never joined any of them?
Yeah, they're great. Helped a bunch with some of the classes last year.
Yeah. The freshman brochure had a lot of information about them.
Oh, intuition. So these are going to be internal monologues. Oh yeah, amigo. Great idea. I'll join the study groups between work and classes. Who needs to sleep anyway? The opportunity had been presented to you. A posse of bachelor wannabes helping one another. You politely declined. Clubs, you say? Nah, I'm too cool for clubs. I don't have time for that or exploring. Oh, well, have you? Actually, didn't you just... Well, I guess he said yes. There we go. I guess we'll go with that. I don't have time for that or exploring. Well, at least you have the pamphlets. Well, if you still have the pamphlets they handed us last year, there's a lot more information on what the university has to offer. You should check it out one of these days. Yeah, I might. I was somewhat overwhelmed last year.
You're always overwhelmed, Rob.
To be honest, life itself is overwhelming. Do they even know the shit you go through every day? Do they even know about last night? They do not. They cannot possibly know of it. There is no reason to burn your friends with your tales of commotion. But don't worry. I just slept poorly last night. I kind of forgot to look up where the room is at. I'll pay more attention to things. I just slept poorly last night.
That's fine and all, but still. It's kind of worrisome, Rob, to see you start the semester already exhausted. Don't you think so, Cal? Kinda, I guess. You always look tired, like you're almost about to lie down and take a nap. Your eyes are always baggy, and I think I only noticed you getting a haircut like once? Not to mention that you use the same clothes for a couple of days in a row, sometimes even 3. And that one time you showed up to your night owl uniform, or in your night owl uniform, because you had to rush to work. And always with the way you speak sometimes, sort of remorse and... Okay. I think that paints quite a clear picture, doesn't it, Rob?
Puta mierda. Is that genuine concern? Stop the presses. People are being nice to you for a change. Capitalize on this. Ride that feeling. God knows when you've get a taste of it again. Their assessment is correct. Exhaustion is clinically one of the leading causes and main symptoms of much greater maladies and disorders. They cannot quite change your situation. They will not pay your bills, or do your work for you. The less they concern themselves with your situation, the less you will be reminded of it during your daily interactions. Oh, come on. They want to connect with you. If you push them, they'll know it. If you push them away, they'll know it. Things will change forever between you three. Changes are not always desirable. You know how the situation stands now, and you do not know where it will be should the situation escalate further. Well, let's see. I work a lot because I need to. You guys are right. Don't worry about me. I work a lot because I need to.
But didn't you just say that you slept poorly?
Yeah, it's a downward spiral of being tired and exhausted. I'll handle it. It's just... Work was a bit busier last night. We had a full shift. A lot of people showed up, even some students from here. Then the fucker showed up. The real cause of your lack of evening rest. They are students here, and perhaps they even remember you. And they'll still be angry at you. Although, a lot of people were up until very late. They're definitely not showing up today if they're students here.
I would not show up either if I could. Environmental law sounds like such a bore.
Such a bore, huh? Peculiar choice of words. Is it that bad?
Come on, Cal. Don't you want to learn how to soothe the trees? It's actually the other way around. How the trees would be able to soothe you. In theory. I know, it was a joke. It's too early for jokes, Leanne. Leland. Wow. But it isn't too early for formal names. Achius? Such a betrayal, calling me by my name. Yeah, surely.
No, the real betrayal is you, pendejos, not taking criminal law with me after lunch.
Aw, come on. Two semester classes? Two seminar classes, one after the other. It's too much for me. My brain would be mush if I did that. Yeah, the timing between the classes is kind of awkward too. I don't want to spend lunch trying to remember one class, then go into another still thinking about trees and stuff. We've done that with constitutional law and contracts last year. And administrative law and torts. Honestly, Rob, I don't know how you manage to study and work like this.
Like I said, it's less that I can and more that I have to. But we finished 1 year of law school and we're still kicking. What's 3 more, am I right?
Yeah, right. Anyway, class, huh? Yeah, class.
Yes, classes. So did we jump around? Oh, I assume maybe the narrative that the framing device is the 3rd year and we're reminiscing about the 1st year? Because this sounds like this is their 1st year. Or their 2nd. Everyone's here already, talking to one another, as they always do. I see a few new faces here. Probably the people from the previous semester who are gracing us with their presence again. And of course, the vast array of other people who I've never seen before, probably from some other major. I wonder what other majors also have to take environmental law. Good morning, class. I'm assuming this is a woman. I'll just bold teacher. A minuscule portion of the class replies back. Oh, wow. Is that the attitude you all want to start the morning with? Then again, I woke up today and I noticed something very odd. I woke up and I noticed that I could hear back through time. About a year or so ago, when you all enrolled in your majors and groaned when you saw environmental law in your curriculum. Of course, some of you groaned because it was not in the 1st year. And we all know how you're dying to learn about EL. But no, the majority of you groan for another reason altogether. Now, we're among friends here, so let's be honest. Raise your hands, those who thought or think that environmental law is boring. As some people started to raise their hands around me, Raise my hand along with the groaners. Kept my hand down like my life depended on it. Was already halfway into falling asleep. Skip class. Oh, you could actually just fall asleep. Raise my hand along with the groaners. A large portion of the class raised their hands earnestly. Everyone then chuckles immediately when the teacher also raises her hand after a few seconds of suspense. See? We're on the same wavelength here. EL sounds incredibly boring. But it doesn't have to be. So, how does one make a class more interesting? Simple. We talk about weird, enticing things that most of you have kept at the fringes of your lives, but are very aware of it. Like cannabis, or weed as some of you might call it, or pot, or Mary something, or whatever name you're using for it nowadays. I've heard people calling it green burrito a while ago, so who knows? And how does that come? And how does that comes into EL? Well, while a big portion of its personal usage, consumption, prohibition, and other things are treated in criminal law or constitutional law, it is legal in some places. And where it is legal, it has to be regulated, like any other plantation or large agricultural business. It needs to be planted. Whoever plants it needs a license. What else are you planting in the fields of yours? How big of a plantation is this? Are you aware of the environmental repercussions of cutting down all the trees to plant your weed? What about bugs? Are you using pesticides? We need to know that. Where are you transporting these plants to? Is it illegal over there? They can't be transported in a way that allows them to be replanted. I imagine you get the picture. Same thing with tobacco, alcohol, legal and illegal drugs. I can and will go on about environmental law using drugs as our starting point, because afterwards, it's pretty universal and easily transferable from one thing to the next. If you're no longer an individual, such as a small business or large company or industry, environmental law applies to you, and we will be discussing them a little more in depth throughout this semester. I can see some of you leaning forwards. I guess the topic caught your interest. But first things first, I never introduced myself. I am Fatima LeBlanc, and I'll be teaching you possibly a few questionable things throughout the semester. Now, this is a mixed group, so I'd like to get a better read on the class. Raise your hands if you're administration and business majors. Some people that were grouped over the left side of the hall raised their hands, along with a few stragglers all over the room. Okay, what about law majors? A different group raised their hands this time. Some people at the right side of the hallway and a few row of seats. Also Cal, Lee, and I.
That's quite
a lot. So, how about... After a bit of introduction and preamble, the class finally begins. As the class went by, a lot of reading material was recommended, and a metric ton of book names were jotted down on the board. Immediately, both Lee and I looked to Cal, who sensed our gazes upon him, but he didn't turn around to face us or anything. I imagine that we both thought the same thing, and decided to inquire with him whether we had the time, or whenever we had the time. After about an hour and a half of a long but very lively lecture later, the class had ended and we promptly emptied the classroom and returned to the cramped hallways of the library building. Lunchtime came and went by. The three of us had a final conversation before parting ways. Cal was off to his paid internship at the library, after which he'd leave for dinner and then a night class. Lee simply left and went home, which was a short walk away from campus, and then he'd return to a night class along with Cal. As for me, after lunch, I launched another expedition on the campus to find a classroom in the administration building, which incidentally is nowhere near the library building for some ungodly reason. Soon, I found myself in another classroom that slowly started to fill with students, none of whom I knew not well enough to sit beside anyways. Eventually, the new teacher showed up, scribbling a few things across the board, and went through a similar introduction lecture like the previous class. Unlike the previous class, though, this one wasn't as crazy and the teacher didn't have the whole class participating in the explanation as well. He passed down a class attendance list to the students in the front row. They signed their name and passed the list backwards to the rest of the class. Eventually, it made its way towards me, and down in the long list of names, I saw my own. Roberto Torres Nieto. I signed in the blank space right next to it. That matches today's date. My attendance for this class was accounted for. I finished signing it and passed the sheet to a girl that was sitting beside me. She examined the list for a while before looking back at me with a smile and said in a hushed tone, "Hey, Robbie, can I borrow your pen?" What did she call you? Not the forbidden name. She does not know your hatred for that moniker. Correct her now. Don't let her keep calling you that. Will you even meet her again? Might as well save your breath. Oh, the pin. Sure. There we go. Sure, but please, call me Rob. Ah, of course. Thanks, Rob. She then started to look over the list for her own name and made a signature there. But instead of passing the list forward, she looked around for another name and signed for that name as well. Only then she passed the list forward and handed me my pen back. Oh, how scandalous. That's illegal, you know. Signing for an absentee is definitely against school rules. And you're an accomplice now. She used your pen to do it. It would be nice to have someone cover for your own absence. I have no idea what kind of like college this is. Maybe this is a common practice in other countries, but like, I don't think I've ever gone to like a class where like the expectation is like changing like an attendance for like a college course. Like maybe for the lab, but like for the labs that you usually you turn in an assignment at the end of it, so like that's your attendance. But for like a lecture, I don't think I've ever seeing like an attendance being taken. You either show up for it and then you show up for your test and take the test, and there you go. That's your grade. All right, so wiggle my brows in a meaningful accusatory way. Covering from a saying, signing the list twice. Let's just go with the neutral one. Signing the list twice. I know we shouldn't do it and all, but I'm watching out for a friend of mine. I was afraid he wouldn't show up. He did the same thing last semester, and if you miss all classes in the first week, they forfeit your opening. But don't worry about it. I'm sure he's just late or had to attend to something important. I see. I hope he's all right. Yeah, he will be. Thanks again for the pin, Rob. Sure thing. Oh, hello there. That's a nice looking owl. I also like that he's blinking. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marcus Moore. I recognize a lot of you from previous semesters, from constitutional law and administrative law. Professor Moore started his lecture after a very brief introduction. We'll be learning more about criminal law in this semester, but I reckon that we start a little slower and review some basics of society first beforehand. The teacher starts to go through a lengthy explanation of humanities and the individual's place in society. A lot of it was a big recap of things that I've seen in previous semesters in his classes. As he carried on with class, I don't know why you would skip class unless it just skips dialogue. Watch over to the girl. No, we're gonna focus. My note taking was on point that day. Even though most of the content was familiar to me already, freshening up on it made this the remainder of the class much more understandable. Criminal law is in place to prosecute those who do things that are harmful or damaging to other persons and property, along with other things too. But where does crime stem from? A person doesn't just decide to commit a crime out of nowhere. There is a basis for it. Socioeconomic issues might cause an otherwise moral and civil person to resort to crime out of desperation, lack of opportunities, and other such problems, like misdemeanors or petty crimes, as people colloquially call it. Conversely, a person who realizes that they can get away with crime if they follow specific steps, adhering to loopholes or acting on impulse of not getting caught, are people with a criminal mindset, a menace rea, a guilty mind. I wouldn't call the former a crime of passion per se, but it's much more linked to a person's fragiled a person's fragilized emotional state, then them having an innate disposition for committing this misdemeanor, knowing full well it's a crime. Whereas the latter knows full well the extent of what they're doing, how harmful it is, and decides to move forward with it regardless, feeling overconfident in their knowledge and expertise. In psychoanalysis, there are many explanations and theories as to why people turn to crime and where it stems from. One belief is that such One such belief is that of people breaking the balance between the instinctual level of thinking of me and the society-oriented logical thinking of we. Leaning too much on your instincts, well, can be self-explanatory, whereas leaning too much on the workings of society can turn you into a more analytical, cold person. And without knowing if a person has a mens rea, crimes stop being a matter of simple black and white and become hundreds of shades of gray. Which crime is more damaging or culpable than others? Should we just look at it all under the lens of this is what our criminal law says? Or should we examine a bit further?
Whoa.
Looking at each case individually and seeing where it comes from and what led the culprit into it. I want you all to keep these questions in mind as we discuss more throughout the semester. In an ideal world, we'd look at every case and pour every resource we have into making sure that things operate in the best way possible. But in reality, we can't. Our society is too big and the legal system is already slow as it is. So, if we come across weird laws, keep in mind that several decades ago, psychoanalysis wasn't a thing, and cases needed to be sorted out fast, and certain laws just stuck. As the class went on, a lot of people had already stopped paying attention. Granted, Professor Moore wasn't as articulate and interesting as Professor LeBlanc, but some of us did our best to take notes and pay attention. And, of course, yet another dozen books have been recommended of reading. One seems to be authored by Professor Moore, and some of these books were printed nearly a century ago. Studying either was a pretty grim prospect. Surprisingly enough, the girl beside me was enraptured by the whole lecture. I almost thought of striking up a conversation about the class and the deeper works of sociology. But before I could say anything... See you later, Rob. With that short sentence, she started walking away. In fact, the room started to empty as more and more students started to make their way back home or into their other classes. I got up and walked out of class, about to do something else. Thankfully, classes are back, and I'm able to use my student pass again. No more walking to work. Now I can just ride this cramped thing packed with people. I walk into the somewhat busy coffee shop. There's plenty of tables with people already having coffee and small meals, and some others with beer and other alcoholic beverages. I walk past all of them and straight into a side entrance leading behind the counter and off to the side, into the employees only area. On the way, I shoot a glance at my coworkers in acknowledgement.
Oh?
What the heck? You're here early. Classes have started again.
Huh?
And what do I do with that information? It just means that I use my student pass. It just means I can use my student pass again.
Oh.
Ah, so you're fancy now. Oh God, no. If riding the bus is fancy, I don't even want to know what isn't.
Oh.
You say that, but Derek from the morning shift walks just to save the bus money. So paying for the bus is fancy. Half the bus. I'm only doing it because of the student pass. Otherwise, I'd be doing the same thing Derek does. Working morning shifts? What? No. What? Walking to work, you weirdo. Then don't stop that lovely education you're getting at uni. Be a fancy lawyer who can pay the bus fare, unlike us plebs. Sure, Jimmy Johns. I'll try and do that. After putting on my apron and putting on my most friendly face, I was able to begin my shift at the Night Owl. I expect to have gotten a good internship by now, but it didn't quite work out yet. Either they didn't hire me or the pay was too low, lower than here. And I really couldn't afford to have any cuts to my pay. I applied for an internship at Clark and Miller law firm last week. They're my last option now. If that doesn't work, I'll need to double my efforts to get tips from the patrons with my winning smile. Most of the remainder of the evening was resigned to waiting tables, taking orders, and cleaning tables every once in a while. A little later in the evening, though, when the place got a little more empty, our manager, the owner of the Night Owl Cafe, called me and Jimmy Johns to a meeting. He certainly wanted to talk about the incident of last night. So I got so busy the whole day that I even forgot to collect my thoughts regarding it. After making sure my apron was properly aligned with the seventh time, I started to walk towards his office.
Huh?
Oh crap. Do you think it's about? I know it is. Can't be about anything else, really.
Huh?
It's okay, Robert Stein. Don't sweat it, okay? Now you're the one who's making us worried. Chill down, man. You have done nothing wrong. You have no reason to worry. Calm down, Jimmy Johns. You're making me anxious now. We've got nothing to worry. We've done nothing wrong. Don't worry. Oh. Okay, let's go. Then we stepped into our boss's office.
Okay.
Oh, hey, it's a handsome eagle. Eduardo James, sit down. We did as we were told. Okay, I get the gist of the situation, but I'd like to hear from you two. What exactly happened last night? So, let's hear it. We were just having the night shift as usual. There were quite a lot of people here last night. It was pretty full. Then, a group of jocks came in. Some players from the college hockey team showed up. Let him continue. A group came in from a hockey team. About 8 of them, I think.
Oh.
They were kind of loud, but we didn't mind it at the time. We kept working, but they also kept getting louder and louder until they started to get kind of nasty. Afterwards, they were using queer and faggot a lot. Many homophobic slurs were thrown around. Many homophobic slurs were thrown around. I think they were insulting one of their friends.
Oh.
It was starting to get out of hand. They were talking amongst themselves to see who would deal with it and how. In the end, we decided to both go. We asked them to keep it down or leave the establishment, but they didn't like it. And then they said that they could do whatever they want. Our words fell on deaf ears, ignorant ears. I'll let them tell it.
Oh.
They didn't care about it at all. The shouts turned towards us instead. Kinda threatening. They might have been drunk at that point.
Hey!
It was then that you decided to call the counselor, right? Yes. Rob goes to the same college these guys go to, so he knew that they were in the A team and how to call their coach. He said that we'd do that if they didn't stop. Then one of the guys turned up and started to try and talk them down. But the other guy kept shouting louder and louder. At this point, the whole place was looking at all of us, but the guy didn't care for it. Finally, we tried to report them to the college. We tried to report them to the college. Because it was late on Sunday, we couldn't get a hold of anyone. But it scared them enough to make them leave. In the end, the problem kind of sorted itself out.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a degree. But now we have another matter on our hands. The university got in touch with the counselor, the team's coach, and of course, we didn't get a straight answer out of he couldn't get a straight answer out of his boys. Can I just rewind? Are these the same? Like, okay, it just makes the same thing.
Yeah.
He wants to know why we called, solve problems if there was any, and solve problems if there was any. And that's what I want to know from you. Do you want to tell the counselor about it or just drop it? I'm asking mostly because I know your schedules are quite busy and you'll need to take some time to sort out with the guy. And don't worry, I won't dock that from your paychecks if you choose to do it. But in the end, it's up to you. Heck yeah. I mean, those guys were very nasty. They need to be punished for it. Don't you think so, Rob? Disciplinary measures are necessary for the betterment of their personalities. The lack of anonymity is concerning. Brace yourselves for the conversation with the coach. These guys were hecking angry. Also drunk. Very, very drunk. Maybe they're not so bad when they're sober. Who knows? I fucking hate it when people are like, he's drunk. I mean, yeah, kind of, but like if you're angry when you're drunk, I think that's like a red flag. If only you had a way of knowing more about them. Well, do I think so? Yes. Yes, we need to see this through. Besides, it was pretty offensive to everyone. Very well.
Okay.
Still, despite all of this, we need to keep a little more vigilant in the future for when such problems arise again. It's almost like you need a policy. You're a terrible manager. I don't always have a trump card like someone else we can call. I'll set up a couple of meetings throughout the week, a briefing for the staff on how to deal with the situation. You've never had this situation happen before. A college like cafe slash drinking like alcohol serving establishment. You have like no policies prior to this to help. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, James. That'll be all. Of course. Sure thing. We got up, our minds still heavy with all that was discussed in our boss's office. I don't suppose either of us expected things to go this way. It was certainly an unexpected shock. Although, I'm happy to know my boss has my back in case any problem shows up at work. Hey, Rob. They don't know what's coming to them yet. I mean, they should expect something, but Do you think those guys will ever show up here again? Huh. They'd have to be out of their minds to come back so soon. But I hope they don't. I hope they don't. Well, I don't want to be here if they do. But we don't always get what we want. They might even be back with a whole team to have a party or something, knowing our luck. Anyway, gotta clean those tables. Again. Jimmy John's then turned away. Then just turned away. Clearly the conversation between us was over. The night went by without any greater incidents. Just the usual order taking a while longer to go through, people having credit card problems, and a couple of people who are confused about coffee types. After my shift was over, I headed home, or as much as the dormitory I was able to afford could be called a home. The house I live in is shared by 8 people, including myself. I barely ever get to see the rest of the guys with my crazy schedule. I think they also don't even know that I exist until weekends come by. They certainly don't notice when I come in late at night after work. Thankfully, the floor is carpeted and I don't clop all over the place. As I lie down in bed, I stare at the ceiling like every night, thinking back to several choices I made throughout the years. So far, they've been worth it, but at the same time, it's been exhausting. And now, the classes have begun again. So too will the grind. It's easier to just shut my mind and go through the motions until the semester is out. But I just can't do that, even if I'm tired. It takes a much higher level of being dead inside to achieve that, I'm afraid. Oh well. I pick up my cell phone to idly look up notifications that I've been gathering throughout the day before closing my eyes and trying to sleep. But of course, my brain keeps replaying things that happened today in vivid details and alternatives of how things could have gone. I wasn't expecting the commotion of last night to get me so tired today morning. Why did I tell the guys about last night at work? I don't like venting to people. Really? I don't remember you telling them very much. Something must have taken over me. I also met that girl today in class. She must have thought I was a dick by correcting her on my name. Then again, she saw my name on the list and immediately called me by a nickname. She's one of those people, the sociable kind. Gotta watch out for her. Work tonight, though. I wasn't expecting much to come out of the commotion. Those guys were the worst. They deserve whatever's coming their way. I moved away from my family to escape this kind of homophobic shit, not to endure more of it. Fuck them. I won't let them get away with it. Now, to endure more of the grind. Good morning, Tuesday. Tuesday didn't answer back. I got everything I needed ready and left the house, ready to start a new day. Hola.
Hey. What's up? Did you manage to get any better? Did you manage to sleep any better today? Did you rest well, Rob?
Yes, aside for some weird dreams.
Anything spooky?
Nah, just the usual nonsense. What about you guys? How did you like criminal law in the evening?
Not as interesting as environmental law ended up being. I was half expecting the professor to teach us how to do crimes. Like that Bay con man who was a teacher, but also a swindler.
Huh, is that so?
Huh.
Really, Cal? I found the class fascinating. The whole bit when Professor Moore was talking about that one time he visited a psychiatric hospital for criminals and such was wild. Huh. When he talked about a super chilled guy that nearly an hour about old time movies and played cards. Then he asked the guy what was his crime, and he said that he had murdered his entire family. Yeah, like, holy shit. The mentality of people and how it affects and is affected by society is totally my jam. I had a great time in criminal law yesterday. What about you, Rob? How was criminal law in the afternoon? I met a girl. It's kind of lame without you guys. Kind of lame without you.
Aw, that's nice of you to say.
Huh.
But also kind of depressing.
The books we have to read for the class seem very old. 1907? That part doesn't sound like fun. Yeah. Some of these books aren't even about criminology itself, but rather psychology. I looked one of the books up. It's actually in German. Wait, really?
Well, the original is. The one that was in the list is a translation of an Italian translation. Yeah, but he did mention that the original is much better than the translation we got. Can you read German?
Oh.
Not at all, no. But I have the afternoons free. We can still enroll in optional classes, so I thought about taking German 101.
Are you fucking serious?
All for that book? Well, not just the one book. There are other books by the same author, all of which are in German, and they seem very interesting, really. I see. But no, it was actually that I tried looking them up in the library, and they were out already. The people from the afternoon class snatched them up before I could. You work at the library, Cal. Can you help me? Well, I'm still getting started with it, but I suppose I could. Could you hold off the book or let me know when it's available? I'll see what I can do for you, Lee.
So you're really diving deep into the reading list, huh?
Yeah, why?
Lee is displaced in his career. His interests lie elsewhere. He likes people more than rules, doesn't he? Lee's such a dork. I was just wondering. Could you make me a summary afterwards? I'll need to read them too. If a law major is really for you. If a law major is really for you. You seem to have fun with the social aspects of classes and less with the technical side of it. Yeah, I suppose I do. I was thinking about changing majors, but it's sort of tricky. Well, if you ever need to talk about it, I suppose we could help. Yeah, we're here for you, Lee. I know. I'll let you know if I need to talk about it. You guys let me know too. 'Cause that's what friends do. Yeah. That it is. But are you
Sure you're on top of your game, Rob? You seem somewhat distracted.
Just problems at work, nothing too serious.
Huh.
Oh snap, what happened? Is everything alright?
Yeah, it's just some jorks being homophobic is all. Jorks?
Jorks? Jerk jocks. Oh yeah, you weren't with us when the jorks were being very cheeky. No, when was this? Last year or so. It's been a while. But anyway, you want to talk about it, Rob?
It's nothing too big, really. It never is with us. But shouldn't it be? I might end up missing class one of these days to talk to their coach.
That's not good. Can't you do something about it?
I don't know. I'll have to talk to my boss.
Although, this is still the first week of classes. If there's a time to miss it, this is it. Still, you probably should try and avoid missing classes. But anyway, were they being homophobic with you? Did they call you any names?
Yeah. Oh yeah, horrible, disgusting names we shall never repeat. Things society frowned upon. It shouldn't be repeated out loud. Well, they did say some offensive things, but not to me, just some other guy from the team. They didn't even know about me to call me names. Not to me, just to some other guy from the team.
You had to intervene, right?
Yeah, me and Jimmy Johns, my coworker. But like I said, it's already happened. Gotta focus on the road ahead.
Alrighty then. But hey, if anything comes up, let us know, okay?
Of course we will, right? They're your friends after all. There is not much need to bother them with your plights. They are currently manageable. Alright, I will. Thanks, guys.
You know it, Rob.
Then the class happened. It wasn't much different from yesterday, but Professor LeBlanc took to a different drug this time around. As she carried on with today's lecture, I'll pay attention. Cigarettes is something that the world as a whole is slowly shifting towards a more negative stance on. It used to be that just 2 decades ago, cigarette companies were one of the biggest sponsors of famous sports teams. Anything from soccer to hockey to Formula One to even golf. And of course, print media such as newspapers, gossip magazines, and even comic books had ads for cigarettes. But after many breakthroughs both in science behind what is in a cigarette and a great political stance on the stance of the cigarette companies need to be held accountable, helped to make a shift from glorifying smoke into making it nearly illegal. Of course, it isn't illegal to smoke, even though there are tons of studies proving how unhealthy it is not only for the smoker, but the people around them. But small changes in such as prohibiting smoking in enclosed spaces, increasing the price and taxation on tobacco-based products, and issuing heavy fines for people littering public walkways with cigarette butts are steps towards completely abolishing cigarettes. And you might think, why don't we do that decades ago? While a valid question, it misses the big picture. Environmental law is a very young branch of the legal system, and as such, many entities with a dated version and geopolitical understanding of the world see it as something unnecessary or superfluous. But it's more persistent, more present in everyday life than we notice. Whenever a new bike lane opens up somewhere, there had been a long discussion between government organs to decide whether or not to go for it. And in those meetings, there is an EL specialist to talk about the changes that'll bring. As for cigarettes, they didn't decide to start to outlaw them because they're bad per se. They wanted to cut costs in medicinal care for preventable diseases such as lung cancer. The number one cause of lung cancer happened to be cigarettes. So weighing the cons of smoking with the pros, which comes down to the economy, costs, bills, and profit in general, it was then decided to start the whole process. And they had to bring an EL specialist to aid with those proceedings. Of course, it isn't to say that they could not have done it without one, but it certainly speeds up the process along. And when it comes to saving up money because of small things like that, the government can act real fast. I took notes on certain points, trying to gauge what information was worth jotting down and what wasn't. Eventually, the class was over and we reunited outside for lunch again. The usual suspects, Cal, Lee, and me. We talk a little about class, what became of it, and such. Got to hear Lee describe some more sociological aspects of law, which was fun. And then we went our separate ways for our afternoons. I found my seat in the classroom in the administration building. It wasn't long before everyone else was in their seats. Well, almost everyone. The girl's friend apparently did not show up again. And once again, she hijacked my pen to counterfeit a signature for her friend in the attendance list before passing it forward. Thanks again, Ravi. No word from your friend? No, I guess he's not coming today either. Shame. Professor Moore then started explaining more concepts of criminal law for the classes, still in his somewhat monotonous tone. We tried to pay attention to the class and listen to his long lecture. Actually, I'm kind of surprised with, like, I don't know, usually like university classes in the United States are set up where, like, usually like a class on Monday only like meets up on Mondays and Wednesdays, and a class like Tuesdays is usually paired with Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's a little weird that like he's taking the same classes both on a Monday and a Tuesday. At least like for me. A man who committed a crime receives a sentence. It is based on the crime and several other observations surrounding the circumstances in which it happened. Now, a woman commits the same crime under very similar circumstances, but her sentence is different. Why is that? Are we discriminating against gender? Should that matter when it comes down to the laws and rules? Truth is, laws aren't black and white. We use them as guidelines to judge people that commit crimes. But depending on who committed the crime, against whom, and how it was done, we turn a blind eye to particular to certain particularities about it. Depending on cultural background of the person, we attribute it to a violent behavior, lack of self-control, dissimulation, or criminal influence by others. In other cases, we brand the perpetrator as guilty, dish out a sentence, and move on without as much as a second glance.
Whoa.
In truth, criminal law is being used the right way when you don't consider it as absolute. People change and circumstances are often deceiving. But we can't make exceptions or extrapolate too much for everyone. We have to draw the line somewhere. But as it happens, we're drawing a line in a completely wrong place. Criminal law is being disregarded in favor for examining an individual's life beforehand. Not that it shouldn't be done, but it's being done at a cost, and that cost is fairness. I attempt to make notes throughout the lecture, but the professor's meandering through the discourse was kind of distracting. My notes are going to be a mystery to decipher later. Eventually, the Professor Moore had us watch a video presentation of a criminal court's workings in the 1950s. It wasn't any less confusing than the lecture itself was, but we tried to take notes as well. Later on, we were asked to write a short essay on the subject, and obviously a lot of people began to chatter as they wrote their own documents. At that moment, the girl next to me reached out. Hey, Robbie, can I add you to my booper? Booper? Sure, why not? I guess it's always yes. Okay, but I barely use it. Soon enough, both of us pull out our mobile phones. We looked one another up on Booper and added each other as friends. Boopers? That's supposed to be as Twitter. The whole thing took about 20 seconds tops. Apparently, this girl's name is Jane O'Donnell. Hey there, booped ya? Huh. Same. Whoa, you're from Spain? Yeah, been here for a couple of years now. Long way from home, huh? A ways, yeah. Not a fan though, hence why I left it behind. Spain? Home. Ah, I see. Reminds me a bit of our situation. My friend and mine's, that is. We're both from little Pigment? Pinnegam. From little Pinnegam. I don't get along too well with my mom, and my father's always out, traveling the world. I have nothing worth staying behind for, really. Except for my friend, but he's faced some problems back home. We're both trying to get away from it, start anew. I mean, half trying, half succeeding. College life is something else entirely. That it is. Yeah. This whole class is weird. There was a time where I wouldn't think too hard about this whole crime thing. Being justifiable and not fully impartial depending on who does it and why. But now, sometimes I wonder if we're too young, too experienced in the ways of the world to be in college. Some of us, at least. Sorry. I didn't mean to distract you. Just bouncing ideas from my essay. Thanks for listening, Rob. Don't mention it. I thought about what she said for a while before turning my attention back to my own essay, pondering about what to write next. It took me it took me the whole remainder of the class to do it. Then I handed it in and made my way to work. The grind won't wait for me after all. See you around, Rob. See ya, Jane. Then, yet another bus ride. I found myself back at the Night Owl Cafe, ready to start my shift.
Oh.
Hey there. How was school, dearie? Made many new friends today?
Whoa.
School was fine. Learned tobacco and crimes. Actually did make a new friend. I did actually make a new friend. There was a girl in class I added to Booper.
Nah.
Ugh, Booper. I know. But anyway, we met yesterday and we were talking some more today about our origins and why we're here. And then we sort of helped each other write an essay on criminal law.
Nah.
Ugh, that's how I know college isn't for me. Too much theory and too little practice. Didn't you do a whole 2-year course on Western movie analysis or something? Yes, and it didn't land me a job or anything. It was a huge waste of time, energy, and money. Well, sorta. It was fun, but fun doesn't pay the bills. It could, though. There's a lot of people making videos online where they talk about all sorts of things. You could criticize them or something, I don't know. What? Record a video of me trashing on movies? Who would watch that? Hey man, I'm just saying. There are people who've done it. It could be a thing. There are people who've done it. Now they're swimming in money. No, they're not. After years of building a brand and presence. Yeah, that. And also a lot of corporate sponsorships and shit. You gotta be very marketable. I definitely will never be marketable. You never know. I guess. But anyway, the boss talked to us during the afternoon when it was a bit calmer. Everyone was there except you and Derek. He asked me to bring you up to speed. The whole dealing with loud people thing, that is. All right, go on. So when it comes to big groups like those guys, we kept talking during work, serving coffee, serving snacks, serving alcohol, cleaning tables, the same routine of always. Jimmy Johns told me of our new guidelines for dealing with that kind of problem in the future. It pretty much boils down to making sure that we're safe all the while asking them politely to leave. If they fail to comply, we ought to remind them about our security cameras. It sounds a little extreme at first, but then again, we might end up dealing with alcoholics, and that's no fun. I took mental notes of it as I cleaned up the coffee press, talking up the regular nonsense Jimmy Johns and I would get up to. Then the conversation turned to a more serious matter. Yesterday, when we were talking about the guys, I shouldn't have jumped the gun like I did. I didn't even hear what your thoughts were before speaking up. Didn't mean to step on your hooves, man. It's all right. We did agree in the end. But still, we've been working together for months now. We're friends even. Or at least I would like to think so. We should be working together and such. Just wanted to let you know I appreciate it. No problem, amigo. So apparently Edward wants us both here tomorrow afternoon to talk to the team's coach. Can you make it? It started. Your chance to make a difference. You will have to miss class. Oh boy. I'll have to miss class, but I can do it. I'll have to miss class, but I'll make do. All right. Prepare your body and freshen up, Rob. Oh, all right. Afterwards, work went on as normal until our shifts were over and even later night people showed up. At that point, I had nothing else to do but go home. Nor had I the energy to do anything but slump onto my bed. We were only 2 days into the week, and both my body and my mind were ready to collapse and shut down for several hours. It was a good day, all things considered, I think. The guys are excited about the classes. Cal's working at the library. He gets all the time in the world to study for classes even more. And Lee's taking up German just to read some old books. I feel like I'm falling behind. I don't have the time to study more, nor the drive to go after these crazy things. I just want to graduate and get a job. The jorks from the other day. I wonder if Cal and Lee have similar problems too. Hopefully they don't. It's enough already that one of us has to deal with that. So many things are going on. I wish vacations had been longer. I don't think I'm quite ready to continue up with this nonsense that is college, but I guess I'll have to do. I need to. Jane added me on Booper. Shame on her that I don't use it. It's nothing there's nothing to find on my profile, I'm afraid. Well, except for some older stuff, but it's not like she's going to look through that, right? Right? We're both outsiders in this town. I wonder why is it that we all keep on running from our past. Work today was, well, nothing too big happened. Not yet, at least. We'll need to talk to their coach tomorrow. I keep forgetting about that. There's so much else going on already that I can't keep track of everything. But hopefully, this thing will be over soon. I toss and turn for a good while before sleep took over me, and I found myself in dreamland once again. I woke up with my phone alarm ringing loudly, startling me awake. Within half an hour, I was ready to leave the house. A shower took, properly dressed, and an apple in hand. I stepped outside and made my way to the bus stop while making a mental map of what my day was going to be like. Not that I changed much from yesterday or the day before, but today, I have to meet the hockey team's coach today in the afternoon. I wasn't especially looking forward to that, but then again, it's a necessary evil. Today's class was a tad different. Professor LeBlanc had us all look at a map of Niken State, with lots of agricultural industries and plantations highlighted. The class was divided into groups, who had to choose one of the highlighted locations to do a whole project about. Doing some research to figure out their industrial habits, logistical planning, adherence to environmental laws, and their previous history of ambivalent impact. It sounds like a bit of a tall order for us, but thankfully we're given a deadline of 2 months. Everyone who knew one another from previous semesters grouped together for this endeavor. Cal, Lee, and I immediately grouped up for this. Some unfortunate souls who still don't have a chance to make friends since the class started now saw themselves grouped with other people in similar situations. That's more or less how I got to meet Cal and Lee, being grouped up for a project back in our first semester. Hopefully these people who can also grow to become good friends. Professor LeBlanc took in the groups and randomly started naming the groups to choose a location on the map. There were far too many for all the groups to choose from, so I wasn't particularly worried that we run out of good options. But then again, I knew next to nothing about these industries, so there weren't any good options to begin with.
My family eats a lot of seafood. I know a thing or two about it. We can go with the seafood supplier. I read some articles on urban agriculture. We could research a local community here. That girl I met in is from Little Penigam. From Little Penigam. I could ask her more about the lumber mill there. Sounds like good choices.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. We've narrowed them down to only 3.
Yeah, but which one are we going to go with? They know this land way better than you. Forastero. Forester? Or is that a play on his own name? Like fraudster. Their suggestions are based on actual knowledge, not possibilities. How about? When it came to our time to choose, the 3 of us unanimously picked a location. We choose... Let's see, I definitely would not base my project choice on someone I barely met who might not even have knowledge of what the hell your project is about. Also, I think it's a bad option to pick like, oh, we eat a lot of seafood, therefore we will know about seafood. Or unless it's like more of a personal interest. Yeah, that seems like a odd choice. Although not very unfounded, because at least it's like, oh, I like this thing. I would like to learn more about where it comes from. Or what goes into the production of it, I guess. But I think I like his idea. Also, he's cute. Actually, all of them are cute. So we're going to go with the urban agriculture from farm community. An urban agriculture farm community by downtown New Yenkin. Nigen? Cal and I decide to defer to Lee's knowledge of the subject to guide us. After we all made our choices, Professor LeBlanc started giving us pointers on how to approach these places, where to look when doing research, and most importantly, how to present all of these findings. Unlike classes in previous semesters, we don't have to write it as a legal document with all the legal jargon, since not everyone in this class is a law major like us. But still, there was a lot of information dumped on us for this project, and everyone was feverishly taking notes of everything. Eventually, the teacher dismissed us all early. for those who wanted to start doing their research, and told us that the next few classes would be a mix of orientation for this project and normal content. Cal, Lee, and I reconvened to start discussing this new assignment and have lunch at a more leisurely pace today. As we sat down in the university cafeteria, we started to discuss the choice we have made for class. The theoretical portion of this assignment required a lot of conversation between the group. And considering how familiar and at ease the three of us are, within a few moments, the topic drifted elsewhere, towards more casual matters.
But you can grow potatoes anywhere. That's precisely the point. If it is hard to grow, it defeats the purpose.
I thought it was about the challenge, sorta. Grow rarer, more expensive things, organically and such.
No. Not necessarily. The point is that to have homegrown vegetables, cut costs on groceries shopping, and learn new skills. Be more self-sufficient, more self-sustainable. Be more self-sustainable. Yeah, but most of us don't have big houses with space for a garden like yours.
Or the free time to take care of a garden.
Oh, come on. Planting a seed takes no time at all. Watering plants takes a minute tops. It's a small habit you develop, just like brushing your teeth every morning.
Brushing my teeth every morning? What are you talking about? Do I look like a horse that has time to brush my teeth? This is what I'm expecting him to say. It's common for us to see Lee passionate about things, especially things we see in college. But I hadn't realized until now how these things he's passionate about have very little to do with lawyering. Lee's passion about these things, could he really be a cold-blooded lawyer in the making? Maybe he's a rare lawyer that enjoys gardening. Keeping a side hobby is good for mental health. Lee's time investment is wise. You could learn more from him. So, what you're saying is that we all should grow plants? Pretty much, yeah. Besides, you don't need a garden or a huge plot of land. All you need is a windowsill or someplace with plenty of sunlight, and a small pot or more, if you can fit them. Some soil, and there you go. Some things you can even grow without pot or soil or pots. It's really easy. We spent some time listening to Lee passionately explain the pros of growing vegetables at home. Then the conversation drifted back into our class assignment, and we started to make plans to visit the local urban farm. Also, a trip to the library to research all the legislation surrounding it. We finished lunch, and once more, each one of us went their separate ways for the remainder of the day. As for me, I had a big meeting coming. One I was half dreading, but had to show up regardless. So much so, in fact, that I didn't take the bus. I walked from the campus to work. It's a lengthy 30-minute walk or so, but it gave me plenty of time to think things through, and build up a musty sweat, I'm sure. Although I would still have liked to have more time to think things through. You never got to see who this coach even was. What if he's a douche? Will he even listen to what you have to say? This person is meant to uphold authority and order amongst the team. The coach's word is the law. It's been a while too. Do you even remember the details of Sunday night? Anything else that's important? Insults were thrown around. That ought to suffice. Don't forget to strain your posture, Rob. You do not have to leave. You do not want to have your words disregarded. This is a formal meeting to discuss a serious matter. All of us had arrived, but our boss hadn't called us into his office until now. He was discussing with the coach several things beforehand. I imagine he told the guy some version of the events already, or vouched for us and the truthfulness of our word. Whatever it was that they were talking about, they were done with it by the time he called JJ and I into his room. Excuse us.
Hey.
Oh my, look at this coach. He's a gator. Apparently just holding a whistle at all times. All right. This is Mr. Levasquez, the coach of the Red Oaks. These are the employees that were here on the night in question, James and Roberto. Our boss introduced us all very briefly before moving on. The burly man just nodded to us with a grunt. He had one of those faces you just couldn't tell whether or not he was smiling or frowning. I couldn't get a read on him from just his face, from just looking at his face.
Hey.
Could you tell him what you told me the other day? Not a man of words, eh? Too bad you're in my habitat. The whole circumstance is uncomfortable. He is just not in a bright mood. Quick, Edward's office has got to have something that you can use to defend yourself. He talked to his team. They have likely told a story that he prefer over your version.
Huh.
Well, as I was revisiting the scene in my head, looking for words, Jimmy John's piped in to start it off.
Oh.
They told they had arrived earlier in the night, but stayed for a while. Once Jimmy John's got the train of thought moving forward, I picked it up and made my own collaboration to the story. Yes, they were definitely they were talking normally, or at least they weren't being so loud. But then it started at about 10 or 11 in the evening. The both of us started retelling the story in a very intricate back and forth, like a well-oiled machine. Whenever I wasn't saying anything, I was nodding to what Jimmy John said and observing the coach's reaction to it. The coach looked at us curiously in his small, baggy eyes, scrutinizing our every word. And once we were done with the retelling of the story, I see. Clark and Gajian, it's always them both. I don't know why those boys don't get along. They're such good players, but they have horrible chemistry together. Just because one of them is gay, come on. Also, why the hell do they hang out together then? Even the university's rector is gay, and people aren't giving her any shit for it. Rector? I don't know what that is. Rector? Richter. It just gives me a weird French definition. Of course, it's always French. I should have known. Rector? Or rector? Huh. An Episcopal church. A member of the clergy who has a charge of a parish? The head of certain universities or college. Okay, so it's just... So like the dean? Okay. I'm sure the word has more of a formal use to it. He shakes his head and lets out a long, loud sigh. None of us say anything in the meantime. I'll suspend them from the team and talk them into cleaning up their act. No matter how good they are, I won't have them in the team if they can't play nice. Gay boys with attitude problems. What in the world? Although, it seems to be just one boy to be fair. It seems like bullying to me. One of them was being targeted for being homosexual. Coach Levasquez seems to have a weak grip on his team. Otherwise, their camaraderie would make such problems cease. So...
Uh-huh.
Also, how do you know? How would you know that the... What if it's the gay one that was throwing around the homophobic slurs? That's completely possible. What if the gay was the bully? Bullying the straight, like the straight one? I do hope everything works out with your team, Sir Levasquez. Do you still need to ask my employees anything else? The burly man thought for a moment, sizing me and Jimmy John's up and down for a short while before shaking his head negatively. Nah, I've heard enough.
Hey.
Okay then. Glad we could settle this. He then turns towards us.
Okay.
I thought I would need you two for longer, but I don't think I will anymore. You can go back to work, and sorry for making you miss class, Roberto. I wonder for a moment if I should speak up, or just let it all go, since it seems to have been the end of that. Do I really want to speak up? Yes, something still doesn't sit quite right with me. No. We're done. It's not your problem. Don't get involved. I look back towards JJ and Edward, waiting to see if they had anything else to add, but I didn't seem like they did. I just nodded to my boss, still looking a bit weary. It's all right. I'm glad I could help. Yeah, same. We then left his office and returned to the kitchen of the Night Owl. While there, I couldn't help but speak up to Jimmy Johns about what just happened. Hey, Robert. Don't you think it was odd? Oh, why did I say Robert? Hey, don't you think that was think it was odd? What was? The conversation being too short? Well, yeah, that too. But also, why did the coach want to suspend the other guy too? Only one of them was causing the problems. That we know of. Huh? You kind of just arrived, but the boss and the other guy had been talking for a while. There's definitely something else going on. Something we don't need to know apparently. What do you think what do you think it is? Politics of some kind, I imagine. Huh? Really? How so? I don't know for sure. I'm just interpolating here. I think the coach just needed an excuse to boot that player from the team. Well, he's suspended. Someone else could take their place, and then the problem sort of sorts itself. But why would he want to remove them if he said that they're a good player? Like I said, I imagine it's not about whether or not he's a good player, but something else. Maybe the player is problematic in another way. Maybe not with the team itself, but with college. Maybe he's a drug addict or sex offender. Who knows? A drug addict, sex offender, perhaps he just isn't liked. Being gay does that to you more often than not. But could that really be it? It feels like there's more to it. The boy and the team are not getting along. The coach agrees. There are many possibilities for such an issue, hard to deduce without knowing more. Weird. I wonder what the boss was talking to the coach before we showed up. They've certainly been talking for a long while. But anyway, Derek's alone in the afternoon shift up front. I've got to get back to work. You gonna stick around? I guess so. I don't have much else to do. I made my way back to the Night Owl and sat down at one of the tables. I pulled out my cell phone and started to browse the internet, looking up news, memes, and other random content while time passed. I also messaged Cal and Lee, doing a little more planning for our environmental law class assignment. We were confident that we could have it all done within the month. Wouldn't even need the second. And that's how I spent the remainder of my afternoon. When it came time for work, I made my way to the lockers and picked up my apron. Then got ready to start my shift along Jimmy John's. Also, it's like, I don't think you should get involved. You don't know exactly what's going on. You can't just assume from one conversation. It's not really any of your business, dude. Again, you also can't assume just because one guy's being harassed for being gay, like that's the only thing. But I'm sure it's gonna like eat away at him in his internal monologue at the end of the day. The evening was quite all right. The movement was normal, with customers being in on a regular basis and staying for about just as long as it took them to drink their beverages. Must be a thing with Wednesdays. However, things felt somewhat more homely with our morning shift coworker Derek staying after his shift ended. He had a notepad, a pen, a laptop, and was sitting in one of the furthest tables as he often did. A friend of his, who also seemed to be a writer, would come up and brainstorm ideas with him for several hours before other friends of theirs would show up and they start drinking and talking. It was a nice thing to have in their routine. Definitely a highlight of the week more often than not. I kept noticing JJ paying heavy attention to our coworker writing more and more of his novel. Eventually, when we had a long stretch of time without customers, he approached me. Hey Rob, I've been thinking about what you said. Oh? What have I said? The thing you said the other day about video reviews, I gave that some thought. I also kind of looked around to see what other people were doing. I must admit, there are some quite interesting channels out there doing interesting reviews, analysis, abridged explanations of them and such. There are some many ugly people thinking they're interesting. It's frightening. But I don't think there's anything new I can do with that. I mean, I don't want to do more of the same. If I were to do it, I'd want to add something interesting or novel twist, you know? I can't think of anything though. In fact, I don't even know if I do stuff with movies. What do you think, Ideas Boy? Let me see. An idea for you. All right. How about something to do with coffee? What if you made songs about the movies? Parodies are always good to do, right? I don't know. I don't get parody ideas. I've never gotten any song ideas from this guy. Something to do with coffee? How about something to do with coffee? That's too niche, though. I know we work in a cafe and everyone here only has an eye for one thing. But you'll be surprised if you go out there, Rob. There are a lot of people who don't like coffee. But no. I think it would be something grander, something more. Me, I guess. I thought those were good ideas. People don't go to the moon to settle down for good. Oh, well, in that case, you can make parallels to other media. You can try to analyze actors and their inspirations. Compare movies to different cultures. I like this last idea. Compare movies to different cultures. Yeah. You know my face to be that of a person who's gonna sit down and learn Punjabi and a whole folklore just to make one single analysis. I mean, a lot of people do that, actually. That sounds fascinating. If I didn't have to worry about paying rent and food. None of those things rings out to me, really. Actually, yeah, it's like... Are there any of these that make him happy? Think of writing. Either make something too bland or too hard to understand, even for myself. Already do that, but so does everyone else. Talk shows already have a monopoly on that. Besides, sort of content will only be good for people wanting to enter the industry, I think. Not that they're bad ideas. They're good, but they're still not me, you know? No one's going to look at that and say, Jimmy is the one that did this. No one else could have done this other than Jimmy. Or Jim. You know? I do, yeah. Well, this is quite tricky, you know, but... if this has to be about you and only solely you, I guess, your personality should be a focus. You should integrate your experiences. Make a vlog instead. This one. You need to integrate your experiences. What the hell do you mean by that? I have no experiences I can make videos about. Serving coffee for a year doesn't make me great at writing documentaries. Unless it's about a very specific thing. Besides, who watches documentaries on coffee? How about... Nah, it's all right. It isn't like we're deciding everything right here, right now. Brainstormers are in the corner. We're on the clock and still have work to do. Muy bien. Let me know if you want to talk more about this. It sounds important to you. It's not the specific project that's important, really. I want to change. I want to do something different, interesting, important, not serve coffee all day. And even if it paid better, I don't see myself doing this forever. The next big thing won't fall into my lap just like that. I need to do something, chase after it. The problem is, I don't know what it is yet, though. And that's what I kinda envy about you, you know? You already have a path, a thing you're doing, a place you're going. Sure, you're older than me, but still. I'll stop ranting before you stab me. I know you know where the knives are. Also, don't stab me. That wouldn't be cool. Yeah, don't stab Jimmy Johns. You don't know enough about crime law to avoid the law yet. Maybe just bab him, right on the nose, just once. Just that so he knows that you have it in you. There are too many steps involved with stabbing James, not worth the effort. Nor wasting mental energy pondering our hypothetical scenario. Okay, I won't. Now, that's cool. My conversation with Jimmy Johns didn't go anywhere incredibly productive or heartfelt afterwards. In fact, it barely went anywhere. He was absorbed in thought most of the evening. Then, after the shift ended, everyone went back to their homes. I assume. I know I did. Door, home, hallway, door, bedroom, bed. I was finally back after yet another exhausting day, both mentally and physically. Once again, I saw the most relevant events of the day playing out in my mind, and how I might have gone on about them instead. While it was both a waste of time to think on what ifs, it was also the only time I had during the day to meditate and think about things more thoroughly. I've done it since I can remember, and today was no different. When will I have free time? We need to look into the urban farm place for class. Lee's hobbies are not what I would expect. I wonder what else he's into. Whatever he's into, I suspect that he's not into lawyering. Today's meeting was odd. I wasn't expecting it to be as short as it was. They had decided before we even entered the room. In the end, the two guys will be suspended. Gagney and Clark? I don't know them by name, but I remember them from Sunday. Sure, the loud guy was an ass, but the other one didn't do anything. Or did he? Jimmy John seemed to have some strong opinions on it after all. Could the other guy have deserved it? Jimmy John's had a lot on his mind today. He's always talking about doing something new, something different. This time around, though, he seemed more exhausted from work, of how things are currently. Things wouldn't be as nice if he left the Night Owl, but I hope whatever he tries next works out for him. He might not realize that me being on a path as I currently am isn't much better than a deal either. Or that isn't that much better of a deal either. I want to graduate and become a lawyer, yes. But there's not a single day I'm not second guessing myself about that either. Oh well. I keep thinking of other menial things, and eventually sleep took over me and I was in dreamland once more. It took several rings of the alarm to wake me up, And then 2 more slaps on the snooze button before I started to gather my strength and courage to start the day. I took a quick shower, got dressed, snatched a quick snack from the kitchen, and left the house, trying to get ready for another day. Just 2 more days until the weekend, then I can take it a bit easier. The grind had already started, and I was slowly getting back into the rhythm of it. I made my way to class, smiling despite my sleepiness because my friends were there. And I couldn't wait to talk some more with them. Hey guys.
Hey Rob.
Good day. We talked for a bit before making our way to class, taking care of the daily pleasantries before moving on to the other topics. Except...
And that's why you didn't go to class.
Yeah, I had to show up at work to deal with some problems. The whole jork situation I told you about. We decided to talk to their coach about the players because of their behavior.
That sucks. Not only did you miss class, but you also had to talk to their coach because of that?
Yes. We explained to him the situation and he seemed pretty annoyed. He said that he was going to suspend them.
Makes sense. Going ham in public deserves a disciplinary measure.
An awful thing to become, unsavory and uncivilized. Of all the things one could become, I imagine that they feel safer in their numbers, being in a team and all.
Sports people aren't above any rules. But it's not worth missing class for. Sure, it's a problem that needs to be solved, but you also have other responsibilities. We know how college is important to you, and to be missing out on it because of other people's fault is just...
Well, anyway, it's been dealt with. So we can all move on. We then walked into class, took our seats, and shortly thereafter, the teacher arrived and began her own lecture. As class began and everyone found their seats, I felt the drowsiness coming back. Maybe I could. Nope, stay awake. I had to shake my head around a few times and pinch my thigh to keep myself from falling asleep. Eventually, the teacher showed up, and once the lecture started, I was drawn in and all the pesky drowsiness went away. The other day, I saw someone wearing a mask. One of those disposable cloth masks that you buy in bulk at the pharmacy. It made me thankful that we don't have to wear them yet. Just a couple of years ago, China had the biggest concentration of air pollution before ever recorded in the world. It was a huge news case back then. Over there, wearing a mask is a matter of life and death. More than 1 million people die every year there due to problems caused or amplified by air pollution. Their environmental policies are very exploitable because that's not their focus. A concern of growing and solidifying themselves as an economical stable nation, a first world country, as some would call it, overrides their environmental protection policies. Not that they didn't have them, but the punishment isn't nearly as bad. Whatever fines that they're paying for polluting the environment or destroying the land to build factories doesn't make a dent in their annual earnings. In other words, it's more profitable to not care about the environment at all. As I said, I'm thankful that we live in a nation that takes EL more seriously, and we don't need to wear masks just not to die out of a stroke or being poisoned by toxic metals in our drinking water. Of course, we aren't paragons of correctness either. There are many industries here that try and find loopholes in legislation to profit more. And several companies also benefit from having their own people and government passing laws to benefit said companies. A big example is a water preservation program. It stops companies from owning land within a certain distance of water sources to avoid pollution and other destabilizations. But companies that already owned land near said water sources can keep on operating normally. On top of that, it says nothing about private citizens owning said land either. A very famous brand of bottled water has spent years acquiring land by having people privately own the land, consolidating it all, and start their operations there. Of course, the government immediately halted and demanded the production to stop, but this company and their army of lawyers managed to find loopholes and broker many deals. Deals that gave them a 2-year permit to proceed with operations while bureaucracy slows down the process to stop them for good. And when the 2-year period is over, they pay a huge fine, which is a tiny fraction of their profits, then renew for another 2 years. It's not as bad as the smog, but it's the same problem that would lead us to a similar problem within the next decades. Listening to Professor LeBlanc's lecture filled us all with such a sense of both dread and anger. Or it did me, at least. Regardless, I am dreadfully and angrily scribbling down notes for the class, along with all the reference material she wrote down for us to read concerning this latest class. Afterwards, we all left the class with a profound concept for bottled water. Or a newfound concept of water. Cal, Lee, and I reunite once again to briefly discuss our findings on the assignment. I looked into the urban farm community. I even got in touch with a couple of people from there. It's awesome. Although, in that regard, I was a woman in a relationship. A what now?
Huh.
I was mistaken.
That sounds exactly like it. You don't say. Lee's often misguided about these hobbies. Well, what then?
Ah.
I had thought urban farm and community garden was sort of interchangeable. They are, but they're not.
Oh. No, that's definitely something different.
There is a little bit of industrialness to urban farm. They are planting quite a large volume of things. The one I reached out to is a greenhouse that plants lettuce and sells about 50 kilograms of it per month.
Is that a lot?
Lettuce is super light. I think 50 kilos of lettuce is a lot. Did you get anything for our report? They agreed to give us a tour and talk about their business. They just have numbers on finances, not on anything else the teacher asked us to look into. So we'll need to do heavy lifting of our own.
At the end of this, we might even learn a thing or two about planting food. Not that you're ever home to plant anything anyway, but still, being self-sufficient, it's its own reward. No one ever hurt from having more beneficial knowledge to draw from. Pay attention to everything. I think we can handle that.
Huh.
Yeah, of course. It'll be a piece of cake.
We then agreed on a plan, and each of us went our separate directions for our afternoon plans. On my way to the administration building for crime law class, I saw a familiar girl walking in a perpendicular direction as mine. She noticed me and abruptly changed her pace, now coming towards me. I kept walking forward to meet her halfways. Hey, Rob. You're going to class, right? Can you help me out with something first? What something? My friend. I'm going to go to the gymnasium and drag him into class. He won't keep on skipping class. That's too many times already. But I'm also kinda don't want to go in there by myself. The way she spoke and looked at the gymnasium in the distance, there was an apprehension in her voice. Fetch him from the gym? Okay. That's the court. I don't know. I don't like all these answers. I don't think I should get involved at all. But sure, finally. Of course, I'd like to meet him finally. Sure, come on. I turned to follow her in the into the college sports center. Oh, is this friend gonna end up being like the gay one? Or the one that got harassed? As soon as we entered the building, it became clear that neither of us knew exactly where to go. We took our time to find the hockey rink in the map directory and started to make our way there. The further into we went, the more anxious I started feeling, knowing full well I could come face to face with any one of the guys in the hockey team that caused a commotion the other night. Okay, hydrate. Okay, hydrate. I don't know if they recognized me, if they saw me here and now, but I kept my fingers crossed as we made our way towards the rink. Once we got there, we saw some people in uniforms practicing in the rink. The same team I saw at the Night Owl the other night. I follow Jane's gaze as she scans the place for her friend, trying to find him among the many onlookers and players. However, someone else found us first. Oh, hello there, Jane. And Roberto, is it? Yes, hello there. Hello, Gray. Have you seen Matthew around? I'm looking for him. He's late to class. He should be in class. There's nothing for him to do here anymore. Huh? It has nothing to do with you. Don't worry. But could we talk later? Maybe. I need to find Matt and go to class now. All right. I'll see you when I see you, Jane. Likewise. Are you all right? We can talk about this later. Let's go find Matt. It didn't take long before Jane recognized the silhouette among many. Ah, there he is. She announced as she pointed, and I turned to look in the direction and felt my heart sink into my stomach. Sitting in the stands with a very grumpy expression was the other guy, who was at the Night Owl Sunday night. I assume that regardless of whether you spoke up or not, there he'd still get suspended. Come on, Rob. Jane said and immediately started to walk towards him. I was stunned and find myself following Jane almost mindlessly as my brain tried to process what my eyes were seeing. There he stood, the guy who was being called names by his teammate, who was at the center of the commotion that had us worried at work. The guy who was concerning Jane by not going to class. Clark. Oh my, he's quite handsome though. Matthew, what are you doing here? Class is less than 15 minutes from now. Oh, I'm not going to class. Like hell you aren't. Don't make us drag you out of here. He looked up from Jane and towards me. I could see the hints of recognition in his expression as he faced me. He furrowed his brows and lifted his head even more, staring me down like he was trying to decide what to make out of me. Then it hit him like a bulldozer crashing into a children's playground. Not only did he recognize me, but recognize what I had done.
Oh.
You, from the cafe. What are you doing here? He's here to help me bring you to class. Is that so? First, you get me suspended from the team, then you force me into attending classes. What's next? Gonna lock me up in a room? Wait, what? You got suspended? Yeah, didn't Boy Wonder over here tell you? Claude and I had been suspended because he got a little tipsy the other night. Whoa, what's gotten into him? Seems like he like domestic problems and a mean attitude combo with this guy. Tread carefully. He is overwhelmed with emotions. That's not happening at all. I was just doing my job. Your group was being boisterous. We had to intervene. And yet, I'm the one that gets fucked. Like always, huh? Okay, you guys can sort out whatever that out later. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to take you to class. Jane. No buts, no excuses, no nothing. I've been covering for you for these days. You aren't going, but I'm not going to anymore. If you don't want to go to class, then you should quit college. I know the hockey team is important to you and your ticket out of your problems. But what do you think is going to happen when you fail all the classes because you're not showing up? Do you think your father's just going to let you go and do whatever? What could his father have to do with anything here? Your father will be very angry with you if you drop college. I know you feel displaced here like you don't belong, but still. You know that skipping class isn't the way to go about this. You're smarter than this, Matt. Up until then, I was just a spectator rather than a participant in this. This was Jane's friend, the one she's been telling me about. And also the other guy in the commotion back at work. And on top of that, also apparently someone with more problems than I initially thought. It felt like I should have been hearing all of this. It feels like I shouldn't have been hearing all of this. But by now, I was a part of this. Whatever this was. Everyone's feeling like that lately, huh? A couple of cards and you two. Displaced men that don't belong. What's the matter with his father anyway? Trying to show him by becoming independent? Jane has dealt with him multiple times. It shows. She knows too much of his personal life. She hasn't given up on him despite it. So, I should say what I felt was appropriate then. Besides, crime law's been fun, which is to say nothing.
Huh.
She's been very worried about you. Jane turned towards me, giving me a quick glance before looking back at Matthew. Whatever look she gave Matthew was way more meaningful than I expected. Oh, I'm sorry, Jane. All right, fine. I'll go. Good, because I wasn't going to leave without you. Matthew, Jane's friend, had conceded and decided to come with us peacefully. Although, considering his size and his athletic build, I doubt both of us could have forced him otherwise. All three of us then started to make our way towards the administration building, where our next class was about to start. I tried to keep somewhat a distance between myself and them, feeling the anger radiating from Matthew in my direction. As we walked, Jane started to catch him up on some other things about the class, but not from the very beginning. I imagine she already caught him up on the content throughout the other means. When we reached the classroom, just before going in, Jane quickly turned to me. Hey, Rob, thank you. This was quite something to witness. Matthew still looks bothered, but somewhat less than when you first met him. I call that progress. Matthew's life was unspoken and unbeknownst tension that you could not have known about. Don't mention it? She smiled at me briefly before entering the class. The classroom was already filled with other students as we arrived. We all went towards our seats. Jane took her usual seat, but unlike other days, I didn't sit beside her. Matthew took the seat before I could get to it, and there wasn't any other seats close, so all I could do was sit away from the duo. It felt a little odd being pushed aside like that, but I couldn't say or do much about it. Jane was pretty forthcoming about it all, and they have been friends for a long time. But why does it bother me so much? Class went by with Professor Moore talking more about crime law. I would have paid attention to class if I could have, but my focus was taken away by Matthew. I couldn't help but keep looking towards him and trying to imagine what was going on with him. And he clearly had trouble concentrating because he kept eyeing me as well. Although he seemed angrier than anything. The lecture went by, and in the end, I had a notebook full of notes with underlined words all over it. Eventually, I'll go through them more diligently. For now, with the end of class, I had just snuck out of there as soon as I could, just waving a quick goodbye to Jane from afar. I'm almost positive she saw it. Almost. After that, it was straight from college to work with me. Things were blurring together, and the only thing I had in my mind was that I needed to talk about what happened with Jimmy John.
Ooh.
Jimmy John's, you'll never believe what happened today. I might if you tell me about it. I saw him today. The guy from Sunday night. I saw him in college. Oh yeah, you're right. I don't believe it took you this long to come across him. He was part of the hockey team. We went into the sports center to fetch him, but I didn't know it was him.
Huh?
Wait, what do you mean? The girl from Crime Law, Jane. She wanted to drag him to class because he's been skipping them for days now. Oh, what the hell is going on in your college? So much drama in only 4 days. Right? Just, I imagine I'd end up coming across either one of them and any one of these days. But it expected it to be random, like walking around on campus or whatever. Not to mention, not to be marched right into him by my classmate within days.
Oh.
And then what happened? Well, that's the thing. He recognized me and was pissed off that we got him suspended from the team.
Oh.
Yeah, obviously. But Jane, she got him and convinced him to go back. There was also this tense moment with his father or something that I didn't quite get, but it seems like he has a lot of problems on his plate.
Oh.
A hockey player in a college team with problems at home and an attitude issue. Not what I would call a good choice of friendship. I take it that you're done with them, right? The guy and the girl too. Done with them? No, we still share a class together. No, we still share a class together. The one he's not going to should change now. Maybe it's best if it doesn't. Why do you say that? I'm just looking out for you, Rob. Well, thank you, Jimmy Johns. But I think I can handle myself. I just need to calm down a bit, first and foremost.
Oh.
Yeah, you do that. Then realize that you're better off without extra drama in your life. But it's not extra drama. I mean, it is, but still. There's something that draws me to it.
What?
Oh no, it's happening again. What is? Your empathy is showing again. That's not a bad thing, is it?
Oh.
Of course it is, Robbie. People will mistreat you. Besides, you always get drawn into people's problems and dramas and end up forgetting to take care of yourself. I can't ignore them, Jimmy Johns.
Oh.
I know. If anything, it's your personality flaw. That'll be the end of you someday. Or the beginning of something great. Who knows? Caring too much for others mentally exhausts you. What? Jimmy Johns doesn't reply. He just shook his finger in my direction and took off to care for a customer. I spent the rest of the evening at work pondering about his words. While they rang true, I don't think it's as bad as he says. Or is it? Eventually, work was over. Several thoughtful moments later, and I was home. I was back home. When I was lying in bed, like every other day, I was thinking about what happened to me during the day. I met the guys in the morning. If only they've known that I was going to meet the head jerk. No, wait. He might not even be a jerk to begin with. Maybe I'm the jerk. I had to skip class yesterday just to get him suspended. Matthew. Well, can't think about you right now. I need to help the guys with the environmental law assignment. We need to look a bit further into writing that essay. Dang it. I can't help it. I can't not think about him. I guess he made quite an impression on me. And I made quite an impression on him as well. Getting him suspended from the team and showing up in his face to drag him to class. Why is that? And what problems is he having? Why am I thinking of him so much? Why? Maybe Jimmy John's was right. I woke up after a somewhat restless night. I found that I was doing my daily preparations. I stopped in front of the bathroom mirror, thinking to myself. Something I hadn't yet considered was the possibility of seeing Matthew again today. What would I do? How would I react? The thought gave me pause. It made me anxious. I finished preparing my things and set out towards the college for my morning environmental law class. Hopefully, talking to Cal and Lee could help ease my mind a bit. The explanation was a little less frantic and more eloquent than the one I gave to Jimmy John's the previous night. And yet, it produced a similar effect.
I see. And that's because of him that you were too tired the other day, huh?
Ah.
And why you skipped class, huh?
Well, sorta. He was part of the commotion after all. He was part of the commotion after all. I guess he was part of the problem too. And to be honest, I didn't sleep as well tonight thinking about him.
Are you that worried about him? It's all right, Rob. We'll help you deal with him.
I looked to them, and there were earnest faces. I suppose I hadn't realized until then how much he had bothered me. At first the commotion, then worrying Jane, and then being rude to me yesterday. This guy is trouble. They looked at me as if waiting for a confirmation that I was going to be okay, or for me to continue venting. It's okay, you guys. I just need some time to sleep and rest. After this weekend, I'll be fine. I promise.
Good, because we need you. We were thinking of taking some time off this weekend to do some things for the EL assignment. Maybe a trip, maybe have a trip and just to read a lot of documents. Write hundreds of words. It'll be fun.
It doesn't really sound like fun, Cal. It sounds like homework. This is a priority that would help you towards your future. You don't have to convince me.
Well, I could use a little bit more convincing with the whole writing and essay part.
We all agreed to look into it later as we went to class. My mind feels a lot lighter after having talked to them. Professor LeBlanc just gave us a few quick pointers and clarifications about the last lectures. Mostly answering questions some people had and bringing in more reference materials for us to look into. Then she announced today wouldn't be a lecture day. Rather, we'd be working on the assignment. If there are any questions you have about the assignment, today's the day we'll be looking into those. Some of you have already begun writing it, I see. Just make sure your sources and research material is correct and up to date. To the people already writing it, don't forget to use a font size 10 with serifs, margins of 2 centimeters. Also, for the index. As she went on and on about it, the guys and I kept putting more work into our paper and talking with our colleagues to get ideas and share knowledge. Eventually, the professor taught us where to look for more information on the companies that we're researching. Only one of the groups had done what the professor suggested we do, conferring with the public records in the Ministry of Agriculture and the Department of Environment. It wasn't ours, though. But now everyone knew more or less where to look. And most of us were hoping that they'd have public information about the companies we chose to write about. As the class progressed, we found ourselves having a lot of time to just talk or discuss things. After sketching up a document of sorts, we all just sat there, staring blankly at each other. As thoughts of him started to creep back into my mind, I decided to distract myself. So I wrote more content about my essay. How about talk with Lee? He's cute. I don't know, they're both cute. For more. Hey Lee.
Ah.
Honestly, I have more to go with Lee than Cal. Yeah?
Huh.
How are things with you? I haven't really asked you, but how are the German classes?
Oh.
It's a nightmare.
Really?
Every noun is gendered, and there are so many ways to write the same sentence, I feel. It's really bamboozling. More so than I expected it to be. I don't even know how you do it.
Huh?
Ah.
Learning another language. And moving into another country on top of that.
Huh.
If I went to Austria right now, I'd be so lost and confused.
Or not. Both languages I learned were out of need. My own when I was growing up like everyone else does. And this when all of the content I wanted to consume wasn't in my language.
Oh yeah, me wanting to get down and dirty with those psychology books is the only thing that's making me keep going. But it's so hard.
Keep at it. I'm sure it'll work out for you eventually.
One would hope, huh?
We then talked some more about his class and other more leisurely things in our lives. It was a good catch up with him more thoroughly. When class was done, all of us said our farewells, seeing as how we only see each other after the weekend. Unless we had emergency plans for the assignments, but we'd get to that when we got to that. Then I made my way to the administration building with a little more trepidation on my step. I got to class yesterday, seeing as I didn't have to help Jane chase Matthew down. I got to class early today, seeing as I didn't have to help Jane chase Matthew down the campus. Neither had shown up, and plenty of seats were still available. Thinking back to yesterday, I decided to sit away from Jane in the hall. Next to Jane, like usual, away from Jane, like yesterday. In the hall. I sat in the hall, waiting for the professor to arrive while I ponder things. I saw Jane walking up to the classroom and stopping by to greet me. Hey, Rob. Thank you for helping yesterday. Sorry if Matt was kind of bullheaded with you. It's alright. I hoped it helped. It did. You helped me quite a lot. I don't like to go into the sports center alone. You're a cool guy, Rob. It seems like things have calmed down with them. Good going, cool guy. Half the sports center was dominated by athletic males. Even non-athletically inclined males steer clear of it. And you're a cool gal, Jane. Then she walked into class while I remained outside. Matt showed up a little while later, walking past me without so much as a hello. As more and more students showed up, I walked into the classroom to take a seat and find that a choice had been made for me. He and Jane sat beside each other like yesterday. I took my seat further away in one of the few remaining empty seats. Then Professor Moore showed up and started the day's lecture. I watched the beginning of it and then skipped class, took notes, took the time to observe Matthew, took notes. We're just gonna ignore him. He's cute. But stop making him your problem. I pulled out my notebook and started to take some more notes to compensate for the lack of attention from yesterday. It seems like that we're finally on our way to actually learning something about criminal law. Today is the last day of catching up with previous semester content and aiding you to aid you on going further into crime law. Our objective was to analyze to psychology, sociology, and other factors that make crimes happen. Only then can we understand why we need to have laws concerned with crimes. It isn't enough to say crimes are bad and deserve to be punished. We need rules to determine what is considered a crime and how unforgivable some of them are. Throughout the ages, many forms of punishment have been used to dispose of criminals, several of which are fatal. Nowadays, only a minority of nations still allow death penalties as a form of punishment for crimes. But usually, only crimes which endanger society and others, like arson, murder, and terrorism. It is considered that said crimes would only be committed by those beyond any hope of recovery, only by truly sick minds that care not for the people in the society that they inhabit. But as we've seen, some people indeed have a sick mind, but it's not irreparable in most cases. It takes time, dedication, effort, and a lot of patience, but it's doable. Although the United States criminal justice system has no care for that. They just want free slaves. Although this is probably not the US. Maybe the arsonist was desperate for a big display, like an alcoholic would crave the alcohol with no concern for anything else around them. Maybe the murderer felt they were justified, that their victims had wronged them somehow, that the only way for them to find peace was to take matters into their own hands. Maybe the arsonist felt unheard and unacknowledged, afraid that their ideology would be ignored and forgotten if they didn't take action to solidify it. Not to say that they are blameless, of course. They did commit a crime after all, a big one. But simply punishing them with imprisonment or death penalty doesn't solve the problem. Furthermore, it doesn't help those affected by said crimes. One of the core of crime law is restoration. The criminal has to give back to those they offended and harmed, but if they don't feel guilty for it, then they need to be forced to do so. And nobody likes to be forced to do anything, which is why rehabilitation is so important in those cases too. And if the criminal has received the death penalty, they are unable to provide compensation for their victims, who has to go on after a huge blow that had been dealt to them.
Oh.
As I've said in previous classes, criminal law is as old as societies, but psychoanalysis and variable treatments for it is a fairly recent endeavor, especially when you take into account that the mind has been having to adapt to an ever-changing world and society, with changes that come faster every time. The lecture continued on with a few concluding statements to prepare us for a deep dive into criminal law starting next week. Class was dismissed a bit later than usual as we finished jotting down notes and more reference materials to read. I grabbed my things and waved a quick goodbye to Jane and rushed to work, lest I get in late. With it being Friday, there are more customers at the Night Owl than usual. There would only be more on the weekend. As soon as I arrived, I rushed to the lockers to put on my apron and joined Jimmy John's at the front, helping him with orders.
Oh.
How did things go? How did what go?
Oh.
With that creep, the guy from yesterday. Oh, it wasn't bad, I don't think. I just saw him in class, but didn't even talk to him. He didn't even talk to me either, so that's that. What? There was no drama after all? Are you saying that he's just a normal, boring guy? I guess? I don't know. These things don't happen overnight. It should, though. We'd waste less time if things just got to the point. But wouldn't things just be frantic if that was the case? Well, I don't. Wait, catch you later. He rushed to take care of some orders from people that just arrived. As I did, when people started arriving in troves to order their coffees, brownies, and to other folks who arrived even later, alcohol. Just after I finished serving up another cup of our specialty Owlchino, I looked to the next customer and felt my heart skip a beat. He was there, steps away from me, alone, with an annoyed expression on his face. I look over to Jimmy John's for help, but he was still operating the coffee machine for other customers. I too was alone in this. When it came to his turn, he started walking closer towards the counter. Each step he took towards me felt like a discordant thumping inside my skull. He approached the counter, and I did my best to remain professional throughout the whole encounter. I'd like a full black, large. Like I assume that's what your dick looks like, right? Because you're a horse. Anything else? One large horse, black horse cock. Yeah, I want to apologize for yesterday. I shouldn't have treated you like I did, I guess. What? Okay. And for Sunday, the commotion that we caused here. He's apologizing? Has he seen the error of his way? He is contrited. In better control of his emotions. All right. That'll be $7.99 for the large cappuccino. He paid for it, and I quickly prepared his coffee. Jimmy John's finally noticed Matthew, and I was operating the coffee machine and gesticulated a lot towards me. He waved his hands around. What the hell? I don't know, I shrugged in response. I returned to Matthew with his coffee a short moment later. Here you go. Thank you for ordering coffee. Thank you for ordering your coffee, just owltastic. Oh, okay, wait. What is that slogan? Thank you for ordering your coffee, just owltastic? Okay. He nodded towards me and walked off to the top floor of the Night Owl to enjoy his coffee, while he kept eyeing me every once in a while from the balcony. I just like how that zoomed in. What is he doing here? Was it just coffee or... he wanted to apologize, it seems. He's still here on his own, watching you. Oh boy, I knew it would lead to some drama. Do you need help with anything, Rob? I don't know. Maybe later? I think I'm good. I like there's no neutral. Maybe later? Maybe later. I'll let you know if anything comes up. I'll be keeping an eye on you and him, though, just to be sure. Okay, gracias. I went back to work and tried to mind my own business. However, it was hard to ignore Matthew in the balcony looking at me every once in a while. Eventually, when I glanced up, I noticed that he seemed different. He had his head in his hands and he was shuddering. Could he be crying? Nobody else seemed to notice, or at least they seemed to be ignoring it. I looked towards Jimmy John's, who was once again busy serving handfuls of brownies to some hungry customers. There was no one else to take care of this. I prepared myself mentally a bit before walking towards the stairs to go check on Matthew. Not only it is our job to make sure that the ambience of the night owl is proper for any customer to come, relax, and have a good time, but it was also the right thing to do, to check up on lonely people that seem to be having problems, right? Like this isn't a coffee simulator, dude. I don't think I've ever been to like a cafe that's all like, hey, like treats you like a bartender. He seems lonely and displaced, maybe a higher degree than he first seemed. Keep him company, he needs it. I walk up to him. He was definitely trying to muffle a cry. I spoke up softly and in a low voice. Hey there, Matthew. Are you alright? Are you alright? Fuck. I'm doing it again. It's fucking pathetic. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? He then shook his head some. I looked down towards Jimmy John's, who seemed to be handling things well enough, so I took a seat in front of Matthew and tried my best to reach out to him. Hey, I don't know what's going on with you, but if you don't mind, I'd like to sit here and talk to you. Nobody deserves to be alone on a Friday night. What? You're Robert, right? Roberto, yes. I think I might be doing it again. Getting obsessive. I'm really sorry. He makes some sort of gesture with his hands. I imagine he feels mentally overwhelmed by his thoughts. This guy needs company. Need time to do a good deed, Robert boy. Right now, he needs company. He needs you. Hey, Matthew? I didn't mean to get you kicked off the hockey team. I'm really sorry it happened the way it did. You didn't deserve this. And if there's anything I can do to help you with that, please do let me know. I owe you an apology for that, too. He just nods. He understands the feelings and seems grateful for the gesture. Thank you, Roberto. I worked so hard to earn a place in it. Harder than the other guys. I feel like it was just a matter of time before I lost that too. I'm severely messed up. We all are, you know? But also, we don't really know each other. But I'm worried about you. I don't want you to leave. I don't want to leave you alone in here. I'm afraid you might do something bad. Damn, already jumping to that conclusion. I... Huh. I've seen people in similar situations to yours before. They were alone and things didn't end well for them. And then others who weren't alone, but didn't end well for them either. I can't let that happen to you. I see. So Matthew isn't all bad in the end, huh? Your previous statement that Matthew is bad was wrong. I mean, he could still be bad deep down, but right now he seems sad and lonely. You do not know this man well enough yet to ascertain for sure his nature. He's suffering, that's for sure. Previously, I thought Matt was the bad guy in this picture, but I don't think so anymore. So, this might sound incredibly odd to you, but would you like to get a cup of coffee? What? He looks at me as if I said the most absurd thing ever, but I see a hint of a smile in his face. Slowly, he recomposes himself and nods.
Hey.
Yeah, yes, I would. Thank you, Roberto. Hey, I'm just doing my job, making sure that everyone in this establishment is having a great time, and that your coffee is just owltastic. As I turn around to leave and grabs us some coffee, Matt grabs my hand with incredible speed, but astonishing care. My heart skips a beat as I look back and saw a shine to his eyes. He was looking at me with the same intensity as when we were in the hockey rink, but there was something different, something warm. He gently squeezed my hand in his. I want something less bitter, something softer. Oh, well, squeeze him. Stand back. Leaning closer to him is a little weird. I look back at his big amber eyes, searching for further meaning while I grip his hand back in mine. We kept looking into each other's eyes for a while. No matter how much I searched or thought about it, I couldn't quite find anything to explain what was happening between us. Of course, it was obvious what was happening, but something in me wondered if there was something more, something hidden or insidious about it. But no. It was just two lonely people enjoying each other's warmth and intimacy. It felt like my heart was being ripped open when I stepped away to go fetch our coffees. I didn't want to let go, but I had to. Just for a brief moment. Just long enough for my mind to make sense of the situation and decide that there was nowhere else I'd like to be other than upstairs with him. Then I was finally able to make my way back to him. I couldn't help but feel a funny feeling in my stomach, a certain wobbliness to my legs, but also a deep happiness and anticipation with me with every step I took, until I was once again within his reach, until neither of us was alone anymore. Oh, hey, and then we got to it. Although, I don't think there's going to be much more to this, considering that this is episode 1, and it's only been out, like, for, 3 years now? Almost. There's, like, a nice little theme to it.
Come on down and make your mark. Standing up for something lesser couldn't mean less to the empty any hope of getting started. Shaken up by justice seekers who are pulling me apart. Oh, won't you stay with me? Oh, stay with me.
Aw.
'Cause I'm lonely, can't you see? I'm talking lonely, yeah, that's me. I got one more dance, but in half an hour I'll be gone. Wasn't I the lonely one? Making phone calls in the bathroom, yelling, how could you have gone? But someone else, someone older. It's not right thinking that I'm quite alone. 'Cause I'm lonely, can't you see? I'm talking lonely, yeah, that's me. I got one more dance, but in half an hour I'll be gone.
Huh. Thank you for playing.
Can't you see? I'm talking lonely, yeah, that's me.
Feel free to reach out with me for feedback. It's incredible, valuable, and useful for improving our project. You can find my contact on Twitter, Telegram, or Patreon. Shared links above and direct message. Here are some of the choices that you made during this game. Feel free to share them on Twitter with the game hashtag WeGayEnd. Okay. If you would like to share it, click on the share button at the end of the screenshot to your local files. Okay. All right, episode 1. Oh, I kind of like this. It looks like they were going for like a Life is Strange thing. It's like, these are the choices that you made. Well, actually, I think Telltale started doing that first, actually. The Telltale thing where, like, it's like, these are the choices that you made. When asked by Edward about the event on Sunday, you reported it. For environmental class, you decided to study the urban farm. When Rob told his friends about Matthew, you told them Matthew's trouble. Yeah, he probably will be. Maybe not in the same way that we were thinking about them when we were talking about them. When Rob had his hand held in the night owl, he held it back. At the end of the week, Rob watched 6 out of 7 lectures. I wonder if there's a way you can not, like, miss that one lecture. Or maybe, like, reporting it. I guess maybe if you try to stick up for him, maybe you actually focus on the one lecture. Furthermore, at the end, his mentally is reaching towards reason? Am I more rational? Which changed the way of he saw things. Oh, so I wonder if, like, if you go more reason, some of the dialogue changes versus intuition. All right, so here, I can do that. You know what? Sure. I will do that. And do this. Take a screenshot of that, the hashtag, so I don't forget. So we got another year. So that was it. A VN by Douglas Kim, who also participated in the Game Jam game. Claws and Claws. I already forget the name. Bad me. Yeah. My only like main criticisms, I felt like it kind of like dragged a little. I was a bit curious. I was invested in Rob's like relationship with Cal and Lee, but I felt like it was a little slow in terms of like getting to, I guess, the plot of the game, which is like, I guess, the the confrontation between him and the deer, which I already forgot his name. I'll be honest. Matthew. Matthew. A little slow. I feel like the monotony of it is going to class is intentional. It's supposed to be kind of like, school, the monotony. It's meant to be draining like that. But you're going for like a thing like that too. I guess you have to make it interesting so you don't lose the like focus. I was thinking like, should I stop at Wednesday? At least they've kind of started picking up on Wednesday. Like, ooh, so we got some resolution. Is Jane's friend gonna end up being one of those guys? And it is. So interesting ideas. It did feel like it was a little dry in certain places overall. It was a very slow start. I'd probably like look at it again if there was an episode 2. Not entirely sure what the development state is on this, but although I do kind of need to check out more of Douglas Kim's work, more recent work anyways.